It was among one of the several announcements and dozens of other press releases in a TAG e-daily newsletter. If you hadn't read it carefully, you could have easily missed it. The headline read, "TAG's Tino Mantella announces departure as president and CEO." While it went on to say that the leader of the Technology Association of Georgia would serve to the end of 2016, it was still a shock. We had only spoke a few days earlier as we captured yet another year-end review Tech Talk. It was the 12th of our annual podcast discussions, ending as you will hear with Tino, as he always does, focused on yet another year of TAG goals, always setting the bar for achievement higher and higher. To look at TAG and know that today it is the largest state technology trade association in North America, that it now has 30,000 members, multiple chapters and societies, as well as an impressive board of some 60 Georgia-leading technology stakeholders. It's easy to forget that it really began to transform when Tino arrived, from a courageous and visionary small group of Georgia technology believers into a period of dynamic and exciting change for Georgia's technology industry. Few could have ever imagined. Greetings, everyone, and welcome from the Technology Association of Georgia. This is Tech Talk, and I'm your host, Frank Baia. Up to the Tech Talk, TAG's annual review of 2015 with Association President and CEO Tino Mantella, with one minor difference. As you listen to this year's happening, make a mental note that what you are witnessing is the result of one man's 12 years of service, commitment, and dedication, and not just the accomplishments of a single year. TAG in 2016 is poised for new, exciting opportunities as it continues on a course of global technology industry leadership, second to none, due in no small part that it is in a true position of strength that will only allow it to continue to drive forward. Next time you see Tino, reach out your hand, look him straight in the eye and confidently say, "Job well done," and mean it, not as an expression of cordiality, but one of true gratitude. It's TAG's 2015 year-end review, and with much pride and respect, up to the Tech Talk and so much more, TAG's President and CEO, Tino Mantella. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. TAG TV and TAG Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Greetings, Tino, and welcome to Tech Talk.
Thanks, Frank. Good to be here again.
Great opportunity to take a look across the last 12 months, 2015, and also a look forward to 2016 and the possibilities and potential for the new year. Let's start out by taking a quick overview of the prior year, 2015. Give us some insight as to what's occurred, and did it meet your expectations?
Well, I'd have to say it exceeded expectations, which is always a good thing. We, as you know, we work on 5 different areas, and when we hit those areas, then our plan is, and what we see happening is we're moving closer to becoming a top 5 state in the nation for technology, which is something that we've been striving for a number of years. And in the last 3 or 4 years, Frank, you and I have been doing this for a long time, I think we're both seeing a lot of positive signs. And so I think the good question is, what is TAG doing in this regard? So, first of all, one of our activities that we do, and I think we do it probably better than anyone like us in the tech space around North America, because, as you know, there's a group that we work with called Technology Councils of North America, and they're a great group and a lot of good organizations in there. But one of the things that we have that they don't have is we have 34 societies. And so when we look to connect the community, we leverage those societies to drive content. And that creates, thousands of people that can participate in our activities in Atlanta and actually around the state as well. So, this year we'll again have over 200 different content-rich meetings. And the outcome of that is there'll be 10,000 or so people that'll have a chance to participate, exchange knowledge, learn and grow. And also we're staying ahead of the life cycle of different initiatives as they come forth. So in other words, we started couple different societies that we felt like were on the uptick of their life cycle, like transportation tech, and also another one related to connected content that we've changed the name, and then cloud is the third one, and then sales was the fourth one. And then we've also pruned some and tweaked some and melded some in together. So at the end of the day, we're bringing these groups together, and they're producing good outcomes. And so when we talk about connecting the community, we have a differentiator here that really no place else in the country can offer the way that we do. So it's going and growing, and more people are getting involved, and so we're pleased with that. On the celebration and recognition side, which we've said is the second pillar, if you will, that we need to make sure that we're recognizing people and companies and sharing best practices in this regard, so that at the end of the day, there'll be others, companies and people aspiring to do what some of our best and our brightest are doing. And we had this past year, we will have over 25 different signature events ranging from the Georgia Technology Summit, which is, of course, one of our hallmark events, the Excalibur Awards, but there's also a number of events along the way, like the Health IT Summit, the FinTech Symposium, the BI Awards, the Diversity Awards, the Marketing Awards, and so on and so forth. So it's a great way for our community to celebrate and recognize the best, and hopefully that's pulling organizations along, and also calls attention working with groups like Global Speak and Tag TV and Tag Radio beyond the Georgia border, really in the southeast and across the country and sometimes around the world. So we're happy with that.
Let's take a second and thread together the first two, and that is we're talking societies and we're talking about the celebrations. I think one of the key points here is that there is a convergence that's happening. We've talked about it for years, but it is occurring, and that is a lot of times on Tech Talk we'll say it's the same thing, only different. What we're talking about now is the impact of cloud computing, the impact of high-speed connectivity, truly a lot of mobile apps that are occurring in each one of those verticals. I think it's kind of important to highlight what you've brought up, and that is that there's a strategy in play. It's not just words or a slogan. It's actually a concept that you're building the blocks and developing. Societies being the interplay and contact and education and best practices sharing, the celebration taking that to the next level and connecting those two dots together, because so much is happening. You mentioned FinTech and Health IT. A lot of those, even in the case of FinTech, for example, it crosses a number of verticals. Health IT impacts a number of verticals. And so having those two activities independent seemingly are really an interconnection that builds a better outcome for both situations. I guess my point I wanted to make to the audience is to make them understand that it isn't just by happenstance. There's a plan in motion here in terms of the evolution of those two concepts.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. What we look at is, how strategically we can impact the community and get people involved and engaged and call attention to what's happening, both from the standpoint of supporting the companies that are here, and then also being involved with recruiting companies that are not here to come into the area. So, and getting investors to come this way. So, and when you talk about weaving together, that's a good point, because one of the things that Georgia has that a lot of states don't have is the interconnectivity between things like FinTech and mobility and security and Health IT as an example. You need kind of all those can play together. They all use mobility. They're all need security. So there's some horizontals and verticals that really line up consistent with what we do as a community here.
And it was a planned strategy that led to that result. I think that's important to make, because the reality of the bottom line is there is no other, and this is me speaking, not you, but there's just no other touch point, no other organization that can give that breadth and depth. I mean, obviously you can go vertical to a degree, but beginning to understand that these things are converging and beginning to, for more or less, for lack of a better term, hybrid on each other, that's a really unique individual benefit as far as TAG is concerned. But when you realize that there's an objective in play about being the fifth leading state as far as technology, it's part of a planned strategy, if you will. I just want to make that point because I think it goes overlooked.
Yeah, sometimes people, we get wrapped up in the tactics and, what's happening with, we did this event or we did that event or we had 1,000 people at this event, and it really is all a strategy to make us a top 5 state. So when a company comes in from anywhere in the world and they see that through opportunities to TAG and other organizations, but TAG's certainly a leader, that they can immediately become engaged with a ecosystem and an infrastructure where they can connect in, whether they want to sell product, whether they want to hire staff, whether they want to find partners. And so that's really some of our organization's secret sauce.
I hear it almost all the time. I hear it. It's especially when you talk to some of the new companies that have moved into the area, the large Fortune 500s, Fortune 100s, Fortune 1000s across the state, and you get a chance to talk to the execs. You do a lot. I do occasionally because of having the opportunity to do the conversations we're having today. They almost inevitably say the same thing, and you don't even have to bring it up. There's no other organization like it. No matter where I go in the United States, no matter where I go around the world, there's something unique about what's happening as far as TAG is concerned. And I think it's partly something that we all should accept and acknowledge and feel good about, because it's not accidental excellence. It's a planned strategy, and you're outlining that now in terms of even the quote-unquote, I think a lot of people's slogans that get often used that are more creativity than they are actual goals. The 3 points that you're bringing up are 3 actual goals that you've got a whole strategic and tactical strategy to implement, and they're showing results. Let's talk a little bit about the third one. You mentioned recognition, I think, is the last one. Go into a little bit of detail about that.
Well, we talked about recognition, and that was the second one, and they align nicely with connecting and celebrating. So maybe moving on to promotion. So the goal here, again, and keeping in mind the strategy, is becoming the vision is becoming a top 5 state, and one of the avenues to get there is to promote what we're doing. And we've taken a little different tactic than other organizations, and I think what other organizations are doing is certainly needed in respect to their strategy for promotion. For the example, the Chamber has come up with a very credible campaign called Choose Atlanta, and the hope is to be able to promote and bring in millennials to here and make sure that they know that this is a great place to settle. What we've elected to do, and certainly we support that effort, is identify stories of things that are actually happening and get the word out on those stories, not about TAG, but about our companies. And this year, again, we're shooting for 1 billion with a B, media impressions. This will be the 3rd year running, and it's been another good year. In the last quarter, these are just a couple examples. If you go fly Delta and see the Sky magazine, there's a big article about what's happening in the Atlanta area, and then a subsection within that on technology. And and we drove that. We also drove a number of companies that got interviewed. So oftentimes we're the ombudsman between the interviewers and the companies that they want to interview. And then, the second piece of that is we also had a major spread in Newsweek magazine that's going to be seen around the world. And there was several of our companies and stories through TAG that went out. Not to mention everything we do, again, TAG TV and TAG Radio, and our Hup magazine is now growing, and this year will be 6 issues that went out, and that's being received well throughout the world, and places like Boston and New York and the Silicon Valley are picking it up more and more. So all those things are, people go to the paper and we just had a meeting recently with Kaiser Permanente, and they said one of the reasons they selected Atlanta as home is because it's the healthcare IT capital, and we've been spreading that message for the last 7 or 8 years. So it's taking hold, and so strategically it's how do we get the word out about what our companies are doing that's great, real stories, media tours where they can hear announcements about what's happening with some of our companies, and that's driving opportunity and awareness.
Well, and you've truly built a media powerhouse. I mean, there's just no 2 ways about it. There's very few places that you can go to in any state around that has even independent media that can provide the promotional impact. You mentioned ombudsman and being able to promote individual companies, but I think another aspect from an outsider looking in, and a lot of our listeners I think would agree with, is that what's been created at TAG is sort of a demilitarized zone. We don't compete because we don't choose to compete. It's not an ego aspect to it. It's a case where we want to help everybody that helps the situation, and anything that can be done to get the word out. And surely, and as you and I easily remember, there was a time when technology simply was not covered. The traditional media, if you will, there's a tendency to call it the drive-by media, but the traditional media, the joke was if it didn't bleed, it didn't lead. And now it's a case more and more. The headlines are reading about what's going on as far as startups, what's going on about some of the evolution and discoveries and innovation. And a lot of that, if not most of it, is coming out of that central location that you've built, that quote-unquote hub that you guys have created. It's really a strong, strong tool that a lot of people depend on to get information, but equally a lot of people depend on to get the word out.
Right, exactly, and it's working. So I think that's been a great success in 2015, and also in terms of legislation is another area we work on, because we say the friendlier we can make the laws for business in Georgia, the more companies that'll be happy here and grow here and stay here and add good high-paying jobs. So we worked on a number of things this past year, including renewal of the Angel Tax Credit, and one that I'm particularly proud of in partnership with people like Chris Klaus and Representative Michael Dudgeon is, and this wasn't legislation, it was more through the Board of Education, but changing the rule from computer programming in a classroom, where the only way you could get it in a public school was through an AP class, and now it's an elective for a math, a science, or foreign language. So that opens up the opportunity to thousands of high school students that didn't have that before, and we got to fill those 20,000 jobs that are open in our area, and part of it is homegrown, and so getting students a chance to get a taste of that in high school and get a credit for it is a big thing. So legislation has been successful. We don't win on all the issues in year one, but then we go back and go after them again if they're worthy in the next year.
Well, and a concentrated voice that gets at least through the clutter and gets some of the recognition, and begin the process of educating some of the legislators to see the options and opportunities that are presented by some of the issues that you're pushing. I know that advocating, I shouldn't say pushing, but advocating. One of the things that I feel strong about this. I think our listeners, 99% of them are more than likely TAG members. They're all stakeholders. Every single one of the things that you're talking about happened because each of them have played a role, both volunteering and also even participating in sponsorships and underwriting a lot of the activities. So when we talk about these things, it's wanting to get the word out to them to be able to feel good, feel proud, and be educated to the fact that these things are occurring. Bottom line, when you talk about something like that legislation as it relates to changing the academic situation, that's huge, because it's at one point or another, you wouldn't have been able to find a place where they had computer education, and now it's a situation where it's at the forefront. And certainly something like STEM, nobody understood what those acronym meant. Now it's a case I don't think there's anybody that you talk to anymore that you don't say STEM understands exactly what the problem is and exactly what the solution is, and isn't playing a role in it because of what you guys have set in motion.
Right. And, we're not the only ones pushing STEM, but certainly the word STEM is, your point's well taken, because 2 years ago there were a lot of people that didn't know what it was, and there's still some, but every day there's more and more picking up, the need for that. So we're happy with that. And that final area, Frank, just to kind of go full circle here, is on workforce, and we do that through our TAG Education Collaborative, getting kids excited about math, science, technology, and engineering, and there's been some good progress there as well. Our intern program, for example, placed 162 rising high school seniors in summer jobs this year, which was a record number. Now we want to keep doing more for the listeners, because we had probably another 1,000 that were qualified, that were looking for summer jobs, that these companies, as you know, Frank, would get great benefit out of utilizing the skills for them for $1,250 for a 5-week summer experience. And I think sometimes they think, oh, it's a high school kid. What, we already have somebody getting the coffee or whatever. It's like, no, these people really could probably run rings around a lot of folks in terms of the technology that they know.
I always bring up one of the interns that turned out to be a winner of the Excalibur Award. And it was over a short period of time from the time they were an intern till they innovated. I think it's Food Finder, and it turned out to be a winning innovation as far as the competition against some pretty formidable competition. And a year earlier, he was an intern. So you're absolutely right. It isn't just about getting the coffee. It could also be someone that's got an insight, especially into the new economy and into a millennium mentality. So that's another big issue.
And by the way, Frank, he is going to the University of Michigan now, and he contacted me recently, and he's still building the Food Finder program, and he's looking to do some crowdfunding. So
for our
we're
listeners,
going to see if we can be helpful with that.
Food Finder is I'm pretty sure is the name of the URL as
yes.
well. They are doing some pretty cool things, and he's just a great young guy, and I wouldn't want to call him a kid because he's not. He's just a great man that's building a really innovative. It's altruistic, as the word I was struggling to find. It's not just about coming up with a good idea, but he's doing some really good. Well, time's running quickly out, and we haven't even looked at the next year. So let's kind of turn the focus on 2016 and talk about the next list of strategies and the things that you've got in mind that you want to see set in motion and ideally get the same kind of results this year had.
Well, I think, Frank, to some degree it's, I'll say, continuing to build on those 5 structural elements that we talked about that I'll call goals in order to achieve the vision. But we're also looking at how we're calling it our quantum growth and influence strategy. And so we've been running at about 20% growth a year. The larger we get, the more difficult it is to hit that percentage, but good quality growth each year. But there's also more that can be done with more influence and more revenue, frankly. So we're looking at ways we could do that, and we're looking at the Where Georgia Leads categories to see if we can, set up something where we'll have more impact on those areas. Probably I'd suggest in this regard we can do another Tag Radio in the coming weeks and explore this further because we're still in the process of developing the strategy as far as that goes. But it's going to be...
it's not a minor goal to just continue what's already going on, especially as one of the things I think is, again, important. We're not talking about esoteric, passions for a particular belief structure. We're talking about actionable results to a strategy and a target that says 5th leader in the United States. That's a pretty amazing goal, but yet it's one that you can measure against. It isn't just about how many new people we have or how much work that we're doing. Those are all great things, but they're all leading to a purpose, and that purpose is to take us out of the crowd and make us a leadership organization that in the long run means more jobs, more opportunity, more innovation, just on and on as far as not just the economy in Atlanta, not just the greater economy of Georgia, but the entire southeastern United States. So I'll take you up on that offer and bring you back again when you've got some more of the details as to what the plans are for the new year. Let's close out by just saying that it's one of those things that when you reach a rhythm, I think when you actually get into the zone or whatever you want to call it, that says you're doing the right things at the right time. It just seems to be that you, the board, the new tag team that's been put together, some of the new staff players, just on and on. I get to do this, and it's a great opportunity for me to kind of play the horn and beat the drum to let our members know that under the surface, beyond that particular service or that particular event or that particular society meeting that you've gone to, there's so much more that's going on. And it goes on because of them, but it also goes on because of you, Tino. So, again, congratulations for yet another year of success, and obviously best wishes for the new year.
Thank you, Frank. It's always fun to work with you and your company. You've been a good partner for since I've been here, so we'll keep it going and look forward to talking to you again on Tag Radio.